Nick, we are up to starting pitcher number 36 today. We're slowly climbing through.
We're getting there, and
We are.
I'm so excited to have this top 400 out. Oh my gosh, it has been a lot. If you guys enjoyed it, you want to read it ad free. We are lowering the price of PL Plus. That's just the ad free experience in Discord to only $5 a month for the entire year. It's the best way to just join, I think, the greatest baseball community on the internet. So consider that. Or, of course, if you want all of our premium fantasy tools, you can get a PL Pro for 15% off with promo code podcast. So consider that, support the site. But we got to talk about number 36. Who is that, Eric?
We do. And I teased it on the last episode because I said number 35, Luis Castillo, reminded me a little bit of number 36,
Yeah,
Aaron Nola, in the
that's right.
sense that both of these guys are probably on the downsides of their careers. The narrative in our heads is that they are maybe not aces anymore, but they are safe, reliable starting pitchers. I came into the rankings process with the idea that like both of them feel like really safe SP2s. And then the more that I start looking into it, the more that I pick up on some of like the handedness stats that you talk about, the more that I look at like your Phillies podcast episode about like, you know, I think the decreased effectiveness of Nola's curveball, the more you're realizing that maybe they're both like low end SP2s. Maybe they're just like kind of boring guys who no longer have the upside and are getting surpassed by the Grayson Rodriguez and Bibes and Schwellenbachs and Bryce Millers and all that of the world.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and it's kind of funny. Aaron Nola and Luis Castillo were two of the guys that I really hung my hat on, or really like leaned into. I don't know, hang my hat, whatever. I was really into, became like Knicks guys, whatever, back in 2015 and 17. And here they are now, still kicking and being productive. But yeah, they aren't the guys of old. Aaron Nola's changeup is not really doing the things it needs to do. I like the little changes he made with going more inside with sinkers to right-handers. I like that he's trying to elevate with his four seamer and two strikeouts and take advantage of how flat his attack angle is. But the curveball is not the greatest curveball in the majors anymore. It's not this 40%
Right.
plus CSW pitch. And it's a little bit more of a struggle. He's only had one season in the past 4 years with a hit per nine under 8. And typically, when we talk about sturdy, solid pitchers, we want to see around a 7. When we see an 8, that means it's an elevated whip season. And yeah, it was a 117 whip for Aaron Nola last year, actually 120, and it was a 115 last year and 113 the one in 2021. I think that whip is kind of going to stay there. The main difference between his 2023 and 24 with the ERA difference, that is 446 versus 357, that was mostly left on base rate, with a really bad one at 66 and then a good one at 79%. The home run rates are pretty much the same. The hit rates are pretty much the same. And I get a sense that the 80%, yeah, probably a little bit lucky. The way it's not really much of a different pitcher. Even though I told you about those differences with a sinker and the four seamer and all of this, he's kind of the same hit per nine guy. And
Mhm.
those that want to say, oh no, he's different now from that bad year, we make the joke even year, odd year, old Nola. This is odd year Nola, guys. And that's bad. So, long story short, he should probably be under a 4 ERA, sure. But the whip, if you expect underneath 115, you're not going to be happy with it. This is more of a 15 team volume play because he should get wins and strikeouts,
Yeah.
right? And I think with at least Luis Castillo, I have a little more faith in the chance that he gets better. But with Nola, this is kind of what it is. So you're going to have to stomach 200 innings or 180 innings, whatever it is, of a slightly elevated whip and slightly elevated ERA to get there. And I really hope to see like the 3 ERA or so from Nola, 110 whip. That'd be great. But it's just really hard to expect that at this point.
Yeah, I have him 31 right now. I'm debating dropping him under, the Brian Woos and Bryce Millers and Jared Joneses and all that of the world. And that safety might not be there anymore. Um, that safety was never really there for your next guy, but he certainly has flashed some upside. It's number 37, Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray, who came back from Tommy John surgery last year, and then obviously had a hamstring injury that ended the season, but that arm issue should be behind him. Pretty good pitcher's park. We saw flashes of Robbie Ray last year looking like a pretty dominant pitcher. Obviously, the inconsistency that we know with coming off surgery. But you seem to be buying in on a little bit of a bounce back for Robbie Ray.
So what's interesting about these three specifically is that with Castillo, Nola, Ray, all of them should be flirting with 200 strikeouts, right? At least around there. Castillo maybe a little bit underneath, but Nola's kind of been around there too. But honestly, Robbie Ray feels like the one that should have it. It's a TJS honeymoon situation. And he's going to go every 5 days for the Giants, which is a good place to pitch, honestly. And I love to see that the fastball held at 94 all of last year. I don't think this is the absolute volatile Robbie Ray of old. I think when he went to the Mariners, he made some good adjustments. And sure, the ERA is more in question, but the strikeouts are certainly not in question. The wins should be there too. Debatably better whip possibility than, say, Nola as well. So they're really close to each other, the three of them. There is a little bit more of a floor that would scare you, I think, with Robbie Ray. But honestly, with what he does, I think Robbie Ray is actually a sneaky play. I think a lot of people are kind of saying, I don't know, it's too volatile, it's too ridiculous. And he's kind of shown us recently, ever since coming from Seattle in Toronto, that he's been a really sturdy guy. I mean, even in 2022, it was a 3.71 ERA, 119 whip. But that was also after realizing, hey, I need a sinker here against right-handers, so they're not just completely on my four seam. We're actually going away from them, which worked. He has that in his utility belt if he needs it. And the guy that we know from like 2018, 2019 in Arizona is kind of gone at this point. So having 2 32 start seasons and getting Tommy John and coming back, I actually feel pretty good about this moving forward.
Yep, I agree with you on that. I have Robbie Ray 37. You have him 37. That's but that is I moved some things around while we were on here in terms of just some injury guys. But yeah, I think we're both in pretty much in lockstep with Robbie Ray. I spent boatloads on him in Fab last year, only to then see him get hurt,
no.
which is super great. I am certainly higher on your number 38 starter than you. You have Sonny Gray 38. I have him 30. I feel like Sonny Gray is a rock solid SP2, and I understand the team context isn't as great as it was before, but the infield defense should still be really good, with Arenado likely hanging around for probably the whole season. Who really knows what's going on there? And as you have mentioned many times, even teams that are bad need to get wins. And if the Cardinals wind up being a fairly average team this year, and I don't think they'll be bad, I think they'll be average. They're going to have to win some games, and I think Sonny Gray was really good for them last year.
So you guys are in for a treat. If you have PL Pro and you've already read the Cleveland Guardians team breakdown, you are in for a journey. Because when I was doing that one on stream over the weekend, someone was asking, "Look, oh, wait, how do you expect Gavin Williams to lower his walk rate?" And I said, "Well, it's all right here." And I realized that my process of translating walk rates and strikeout rates and ERA and WHIP from the arsenal isn't as well known. And I wish it were. And it could be the wrong method. I totally understand everyone. This is obviously me, so this is my whole thing. I spent his blurb in the thing is a mini article of me just explaining the things I look for each one of those stats and walking through Gavin Williams. So the reason I'm bringing this up is Sonny Gray had a 30% strikeout rate last year. And it was like a 23%, 24%. It's pretty much a strikeout inning guy for a bit now. That should surprise you, right? What the heck is going on? If there's one stat that you want to look at for strikeout rate increase, you would think it would be swinging strike rate, right? On an individual pitch. You'd be wrong. The number one is put away rate. Is there a pitch that all of a sudden jumped in its efficiency when it's thrown in 2 strike counts to put batters away? Now, obviously, swing strike rate has to do with that. If you have throw more whiffs with a pitch, that's great. But what I'm trying to get at is that Sonny Gray last year had a 40% put away rate on his sinker to right-handers. And I just want to clarify, sinkers should have like a put away rate of like 18% or so. You normally see good put away pitches around like 25%. It's really exceptional. It's at 27 or even 30. That's usually like the Glasnows of the world or whatever. And if you see a 40% on something that's actually thrown a decent amount, it's on like 5 moments, you got to say, no, that is not sticking around, right? And that's because he threw these backdoor sinkers out of nowhere and he was able to just do it. And it was called strikes. It wasn't even whiffs. So that's what you shouldn't do swing strike rate for. It's just about was he throwing during this. There was also a sweeper that Sonny Gray was throwing to lefties. Now, hold on a second, you say. Nick, sweepers, opposite-handed batters. I know. But Sonny Gray was really, really good at getting it under the nitro zone. That is keeping it below the zone as it went across. And guys are thinking, oh, maybe this is going to stay up there. And then it doesn't. And he had an exceptional put away rate on those sweepers to left-handers as well. So against both handed batters, Sonny Gray had this ridiculous put away rate on a pitch out of nowhere. And that's not going to stick around. It's just not. So there's that. But also, on to his credit, this 3.84 ERA, that is a little weird because he had a 68% left on base rate. And traditionally, when you see a higher strikeout rate for a guy, you should see a higher left on base rate because those balls aren't going into play as much. They're just ending it with an out as opposed to a ground out that would score a run or something with one out or whatever it is. So that's a little strange and should normalize, except that the home run rate went way up. And I just get a sense from Sonny Gray that he's a guy who should not have like a 109 whip. He's not this like 6% walk rate out of nowhere again. I don't really trust that. I think the home run rate at 114 isn't too ridiculous based on what he does. He throws like cut four seamers inside to lefties. He also doesn't get that thing away enough, actually inside enough to lefties. And then it's a little bit too much there for righties. It's kind of annoying. It was a weird season. That's really my conclusion. Very weird season. Should be a fine whip. Should be fine. He's never really an 8+ hit per 9 guy. He doesn't really walk a ton of guys. So that means the whip should be good. The ERA should be a little bit better when the left on base rate normalizes. But he's not going to have a 30% K rate, guys. He's going to have like a K an inning, and you'll be okay with it. He just doesn't go deep into games or doesn't last a lot in this season. It was 184 innings last year, 28 starts this year, 166 innings. But he also dealt with injuries for the previous 2 years. And I just get a sense that you're not going to get 13 wins on the Cardinals this year. It's just going to be worse with a strikeout rate too. And I just don't like it as much as the other ones who I think also are going to go for longer innings. So this is why they're all in this same tier together. But yeah, Sonny Gray I like least of the Castillo, Nola, and Robbie Ray group.
That's Jared Jones, who we love. And then we love the early spring training discussions of new pitches, which we're not going to react to this early. But Jared Jones seemed to hint at throwing a sinker.
Oh yeah, awesome. I'm a detective here. Okay, you can't get anything past me, Jared.
But I just want to say that, like, again, you've got a pitcher going into his second MLB season, who clearly learned a lot about himself and what he needs to compete at the MLB level last year. And he mentioned spending a lot of time tinkering in the offseason to refine the changeup and the curveball, trying to find that third pitch. He doesn't need both of them to be great. But if one of those two pitches takes a step forward and you've got the fastball slider combo with the improved curve or changeup, plus the added sinker to, just give another fastball variation, it's very possible that what we saw last year from Jones is not the baseline, but a stepping stone to actually a better version of Jared Jones.
Exactly. That's it. Oh man. So there's a lot of things. One, if you follow all the chaos yesterday, live streaming, and then we had someone come in and say, "Hey Nick, did you notice that? Like, I think it was B2. I could be wrong. I'm really sorry. Maybe it was Drew. Maybe it was Colton. But said, hey, did you notice that Jared Jones had like 7.5 feet of extension in his MLB debut, and then it was 6.8 after that?" And I go, "What?" And I tweet this out, and I freak out, and I check our data, and that's what it says. And I'm like, guys, what's going on? What happened here? I'm trying to think, like, did he jump off like Carter Capps? I'm looking at the video. It kind of looks like he does in that first one. I don't know. And then Kyle Bland, of course, is the voice of reason. Harry Pavlidis also got involved. And he said, this has got to be a data issue. And then he was appreciative, being like, oh, yeah, this is thanks for doing this because I got to fix up my data now. And Kyle said, yeah, this is likely a MLB debut. So the calibrations are weird. And MLB corrected it thereafter because he was 6'8" the entire rest of the season, so for like 3 starts of 7 feet extension. So fine. Oh, that dream fastball doesn't exist. But then I had a wonderful mention on Twitter from Pure Water 71, who shared this fantastic interview. Hannah Mears with Sportsnet Pittsburgh had this great interview and a clip with Jerry Jones saying that he has a secret pitch on top of the curveball and changeup that he's working on, which honestly I don't really care. I don't care. I don't trust it, Jared. It's fine. But he has a secret pitch that he doesn't want to mention. But then Hannah asked great questions like, are you going to use it against everyone? And I was like, yes, that's a great question, Hannah. Thank you. And then he said, oh, it's going to be mostly against right-handers, but maybe in time over lefties, which obviously is a sinker. We know that. That's exactly right. There's no other pitch. There's no other pitch that would be than
no
a
other
sinker.
pitch that he doesn't yet have.
Yes. Right. Like a slider would be the other thing, or
Right.
a sweeper. But like, nah, don't do the sweeper. You know, and also eventually to left-handers. That's a sinker, front hip sinker. Oh boy. Oh yeah. And that's what he should be throwing. Because when you throw that hard and in the zone and you're near 7 feet of extension, even getting there, what you really want to take advantage of, and the hardest thing I think for hitters that we've learned is different fastballs in the zone, is different movement of it that's hard to read at a hard velocity. We saw that Garrett Crochet. And like, this is what Jerry Jones should be doing. Maybe there's a cutter there too, but that really would be for lefties, not for righties. Ha ha! Gotcha, Jared. So I love that. I think it's also the classic Pittsburgh approach. And the way I see this is that Jerry Jones has obviously elite stuff. He became too much of a book to read by the end of the year. He also had lost a little bit of his command, and that's a problem. So you throw in the sinker, and that really changes a lot of it. Against lefties, you got to throw some of those. That's the sinker against righties, and then maybe the change against lefties. I'm becoming more and more of a fan, and I'm selling myself on this. It's me being like, hey, let's be safe here. Look, we have these valued guys here that are also really good, and there's no reason you don't have to get this thing. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably going to reach for Jerry Jones in one of my leagues at like 30 or something like that. And I just won't be able to resist.
I have him 34 right now, so I get it.
Yeah. I think he's so good. That fastball and slider are just too good. And if he has any sort of extra thing, that's it. That's all he needs.
This is the tier called Cherry Bomb, but it's worse. Now, Jack Flaherty, great first half of the season. Not as great the second half of the season. Winds up back in Detroit. Why are we not fully buying into what we saw early last year from Jack Flaherty?
Yeah, so Jack Flaherty is a guy who does not have a good fastball. And I want to really, really amplify that. Not a good fastball. Okay? Because he has two secondaries in a slider and a curveball that really carried a lot of this. And the slider was a lot worse with the Dodgers, and it started to bite him by the end of it. And the curveball was just so good out of nowhere, really, at landing at the bottom of the zone and being so consistent there. And paired with the slider in the first half of being that really good low pitch, it masked how ineffective that slider was. It really hid that pitch a little bit more than it has in the past. I'm worried that that's not going to be the case. We see this all the time from Jack Flaherty, where he goes like one half that's amazing and one half that's not. Sometimes it's the first half, sometimes it's the second half.
Sure.
And I get a big sense that Jack Flaherty is not going to be the fun, amazing sauce that he was the last year, really, because of that. And when we see guys who are so dependent on that tight command window with a bad fastball, it generally does not perform at an elite level for a full season. So I'm hesitant to believe into this. I also do like the fact that it is the Tigers. I think that's a good scenario for him. It certainly worked for him last year. And it could definitely still have like a 25% strikeout rate, could have good enough ratios along the way. I think it's going to be a bit of a ERA push up. I think the four-seamer is going to allow home runs more. And I think it's just going to be a little annoying. He's going to be a cherry bomb. He's going to go back and forth here. You're not going to drop, but it's not going to be as explosive as an ace as it was last year for Jack Flaherty.